The other day, I watched KD Books, Keiran, make a video called TBR Tackle. And I thought it was just another TBR video, and it was just about how he was going to use booktube friends and have them make prompts for him to tackle his TBR. He does set it up as kind of a challenge, but for some reason the challenge part didn't hit me, it didn't strike me, it didn't inspire me until I saw Rosie Cockshot also watched this video and she took up this challenge. That made me want to also play this TBR game. In some ways, it's similar to my favorite game, which is the BookTube Spin. Keiran from KD Books suggests that you pick 12 books off of your TBR shelf, 12 books that you already own that you want to read in 2022. This can be physical books or ebooks, but they have to be ones that you already have on your TBR. Once you pick the 12 books, each month Keiran will post a video where one of his BookTube friends has created a prompt. You don't know what those prompts are going to be. You don't know what book they're going to lead you to, but whatever your closest book on that list of 12 is to that prompt is the book you're going to read for the month. So inspired by Rosie, I created my list of 12 books. Now I had already watched the prompt, so I tried to mentally disengage from the prompt that I knew was true and just pick 12 books off my TBR that I've been wanting to read. I put those books in no particular order, partly because I didn't want to focus on which one might fit that first prompt. The first book is There by Tommy Orange. I picked this up last summer at a book sale, and it is about an Indigenous person and their relationships and interweavings on the reservation where they live. This book, I believe, is set in Canada or America. Many of the books on this list were ones that I have had on previous lists that I haven't been able to get to yet. There was one that I wanted to read for Indigathon. The next book on my list is Buddha in the Attic by Julie Atsuka. This is a coming-of-age story with dual timelines, partly historical fiction of women in Japan and partly involving their daughters. This is a very slim novella, and I had originally had this as one of the novellas I was interested in reading in Novella November. The third book on my list is Quicksand by Nella Larson. I read Passing by Nella Larson earlier this year, and I think this is probably in the same vein, set in New York, set in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, about a black woman with light skin. Other than that, I don't really know what this book is about, but I figured I haven't reached for it yet. Maybe this challenge would be a good time. What Are You Going Through by Sigrid Nunez is a book that I picked up at a little free library over the summer. I really have never heard of anything from this author or this book except one booktuber I like talked about this book one time. Apparently it's a very day in the life, slice of life of a few characters following one main character whose life intersects with those other characters. I believe this is an American author of Hispanic descent. Ever since reading Dracula, I thought it might be fun to read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This book is one that I've actually never read, so I put it 5th on the list. This is about don't we all know what this is about? But this is about a doctor who creates a monster out of spare body parts, and this monster becomes a person, and it's about personhood and what living and being a entity in society might mean. Long Division by Kisi Lehmann is a book, again, that I've only ever heard one person talk about, but when I saw it at a book sale, I had to pick it up. It's so pretty, and I believe this has something to do with post-Katrina Mississippi, maybe? It's not set in Louisiana, I know that, but it is set in one of the places that Katrina did hit hard. It's a literary fiction, and I don't read those all that often, so I thought putting it 6th on my TBR Tackle list might be a good idea. Cargo of Eagles is one that I recently picked up at the Salvation Army, and this is by Marjorie Ellingham. Marjorie Ellingham is a contemporary of Agatha Christie and P.D. James and some of the other British mystery novelists that I really enjoy. This is a mystery novel, although I don't know if it goes more into espionage spy or more into cozy mystery. While researching my TBR Tackle list, I did find out that this was was like the 19th in her series. It's very short, it's very cool looking, and I'm excited to get to it, so I put it on at 7 on my list. I've never read any Joseph Conrad, but I like the idea of putting a few classic authors on this list. Joseph Conrad's The Secret Agent comes in the 8th spot. I believe this takes place in England, and other than that, I have no idea what it's about. Maybe a secret agent. One of the books that I really wanted to get to in nonfiction November was The Cat Who Went to Paris by Peter Gethers. I actually have this book and the sequel to read, and I think it's about a cat who goes to Paris, so there's really nothing else I need to know. This one, I believe, is set in Paris as well as the USA, I believe, because I believe Peter Gethers is a American author, and it was written in 1991, and I put it 9th on the list. So I only really put Transcendent Kingdom by Yahgazi 10th on my list because I think I remember Rosie also had this one on her list, and I thought it would be fun to either read it around the same time or perhaps we would pick it for the same prompt. I did that one year with BookTube Spin too, and although it never actually worked out, it was a fun idea. Transcendent Kingdom is about a female scientist who is dealing with the grief of her mother after the loss of her brother. So she is tackling her own grief, the grief of her mother, and what she can do for herself to feel better and what she can possibly do to make the world a better place. Another classic author is Alice Walker. I put her 11th on the list with The Third Life of Grange Copeland. I know Alice Walker's most famous book is, of course, The Color Purple, and I had never heard of this book before. I think it takes place in the American South and follows a black man, possibly with 3 lives. I really like this cover. Having never read any Alice Walker, I would really love to read some. I think, though, that The Color Purple might be too heavy for me to start with. And then finally, another book that I wanted to get to in nonfiction November is Funny in Farsi by Farouza Dumas. This is about a young Iranian woman moving at a very young age to America and figuring out her place there and her history and how she fits in culturally between those two worlds. This one is a very water damaged copy that I'm pretty sure I got at a book sale, and again, it's very short memoir. It was written, I believe, in the 90s, and I'm just interested to get to this one. Now that we have gone over all 12 books on my TBR Tackle list, let's talk about prompt number 1. If you haven't seen prompt number 1, go watch Keiran's video. I will link it down below. I can't remember the name of the booktuber who helped him with this video, but I will link her channel below as well. Her prompt has to do with Hadrian's Wall, which is a wall in England that was started in 122 AD. This was a very important strategic wall of some variety. Honestly, I have no idea what that's about, but maybe it's worth some more research. And her prompt also had to do with the fall of the Berlin Wall. So she asked you to pick the book on your list, the book out of your 12 books that was either closest in date to Hadrian's Wall beginning or the Berlin Wall ending, or closest in location to Hadrian's Wall or the Berlin Wall. I kind of followed Katie Books' lead and picked kind of a combination of the two. I picked the oldest book on my list, which would therefore be the closest I could get to 122 AD, not anywhere very close, and also the closest in location to Berlin. So I picked Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This was written in 1818, which is the oldest book on my list, and it takes place in Switzerland and Germany, according to Goodreads. Again, having never read this, I'm not 100% sure how much of it takes place there, but at least it's the closest I could get. I'm very excited to read this gothic horror, earlier than gothic horror, whatever you want to call it, classic horror, classic sci-fi that I've never read before. And I think I'm probably going to try and pick up the audiobook for this. Let me know if you are participating in TBR Tackle, and let me know what the book you got for prompt 1 was. I'm looking forward to this new BookTube game to manage our TBRs, to get down our TBRs, and to play together to see if we have any of the same books on our lists, to see if we are reading something that can be in conversation with each other and to have a good time. So hopefully this will be a fun one to participate in 2022. I will probably be doing vlogs of these books just like I do with BookTube Spin. So we'll catch up when I read some of Frankenstein. Bye!